Hello, I'm Steph from iDriver Classic, and today I'm sharing with you my favourite weekend of the year. It's Goodwood Revival, hosted at Goodwood Motor Circuit, which is down in West Sussex in England. Now, if you've never been to Revival before, hopefully this video will give you a bit of a taster for what life is like beyond the track, because I tend to find there's lots of brilliant ways to watch all the footage of the track, but you don't always get to see what's happening off the track. So in today's video, we're going to show you some of the fantastic bits, and this year's theme is the greatest show on earth. So come on, let's go and see what's inside. It takes a special bunch of people to put on a show quite like Goodwood Revival. And I'm going to tell you a little secret that I hope the Goodwood ladies don't mind me telling you. They spent a whole year planning this incredible event. They put thousands of hours into it. So everything you see in this video today has been meticulously planned, carefully put together, and there's so much thought, effort, and in my opinion, love that goes into this event, which means that it's magical on a scale that you don't fully see anywhere else really. I've been to so many events and there's nothing that quite wows me like Goodwood Revival. So I hope that in this video, if nothing else, we can show you some of that hard work and effort, and some of that magic can rub off through the screen. Now, first of all, this was the first thing that greeted you as you came through this gate, was this ginormous big top in the same style that you see in those 50s and 60s British Pathé films, with a whole host of performers that looked, well, exactly like they do in the British Pathé films, and they were performing tricks and stunts and choreographed movements that were actually quite impressive, and something that I've paid to see in circuses elsewhere, so I was quite impressed. However, I know that one of the things that people are going to say is that, well, Steph, when you went to the circus in the 50s and 60s, you would have seen animals performing. Well, Goodwood thought about that too, because they managed to get animals put into this without any harm to the animals whatsoever. So as you can see here, they created this giant mechanical elephant, which was operated by humans, and it meant that you still got some of that animal magic and that old school charm of the 50s and 60s circuses without any animals being involved. So for me, that was a big win. But let's go and see what else we've got, because this truly is the greatest show on earth. Now, this is one of my favourite parts of Goodwood Revival. This is the Earls Motor Show, and the great thing about this is a lot of Goodwood celebrates all the things that have happened in the past, the 40s, 50s, 60s, but Earls Motor Show tends to look back with a fondness for the retrospective, but then bring it into the modern day. So we're going to have a look at a couple of cars from different people. We've got Aston Martin here, we've got Lotus, BMW, Jaguar, and the company that I think have stolen Earls Court Motor Show this year, Mini. Come on, let's go and have a look. As we have a look around these superb vehicles, I wanted to tell you something, because you're going to notice it throughout this video, is that at certain points you'll notice this video goes silent on background noise. And the reason for that is there'll be copyrighted music playing in the background somewhere. Earlier at the circus, it was Great Balls of Fire by Jerry Lee Lewis, and at this point it was various tracks from Elvis that kept popping up. But what happens is if we carry on playing them and we have them playing in the background, YouTube will essentially put a strike against me and potentially take this video down. So I decided it was better to go a little bit silent for a change, rather than lose the opportunity to share this video with you. Now, this car from BMW was painted, by the way, in 1990, and it was definitely one of my favourites. However, my absolute favourite was the Mini stand, which had been done out to look like a supermarket. But who can tell the story better than Mini themselves? So I thought I'd get one of the team to explain the stand for you. We are down on the Mini stand in Earls Court, and I've just managed to grab Chris. So Chris, what do you do at Mini?
I'm the product manager for the UK market here, so we're launching some new cars here today, so that's kind of, what we do is make that happen. Fantastic.
Now, your stand is absolutely incredible. Where does the inspiration come from?
Well, it's inspired by a 50s theme, obviously, because that's the theme of Goodwood this year. Yeah. 50s is when the supermarkets were first introduced. So rather than little corner shops, you had these big supermarket situations. That's when the original Mini was first kind of around. So we wanted to kind of incorporate that in. We've taken a few features of all the things that you see on the shelves as being part of the new cars as well. So a little bit of a link up there.
Fantastic. fantastic. Now, I'm going to be honest, I'm a dyed-in-the-wall classic enthusiast, and the 59 Mini, it's been a real privilege sitting in it today and having a good look, because no one with a 59 Mini ever lets you get very close.
Yeah.
But I guess being product manager, your head's probably more with the new cars. Looking at the new cars, what's your favourite feature on them?
Well, to be honest, the design is completely different on the new cars. Everything's really new and refreshed, which is amazing to see. But for me, it's got to be the central OLED screen, because that, again, ties back to the car that you've just talked about, to the heritage of the brand, which is so important that we keep that. And yeah, refers back to the centre speedo like it used to be back in the 50s, and we've got a very similar thing in the new cars today.
Now, if we were in the Mini offices and I said to you, I've got one set of keys in my hand here for the Cooper and one set of hands for the Countryman, which one would you drive home?
Or if I was on my own and didn't have family with me,
yeah,
I'd take the Cooper, because it's just an amazing driving experience. But yeah, I've got 2 kids, so this is probably the one I'd buy.
Well, thank you very much for your time today. I hope it all goes well for you. I've noticed that everyone who's coming in is making a beeline for the stand, so good luck.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Another regular thing that you see every year at Goodwood Revival is the Earls Court Studios, and essentially what they do is they take the space next to the Earls Court Motor Show and they dress it out like an old school movie studio, and you have different posters and different themes, but best of all, you don't just have all the props that you can use and take photographs with, and we dressed up and we were taking photographs around the NASA stand, but you also have all the actors as well, so everyone's in character around you, so you have no idea who's a visitor and who's a character, and it just makes for a really entertaining break from all the bits and pieces outside. And with the temperatures the way they were this year, hitting 30 degrees, it was quite a welcome break from the sunshine too. Bikes, and a few more motorbikes. Look, in previous years this has never been my focus, however this year my boyfriend Freddie came to Revival and he's never been before, but his big area of interest is motorbikes, and he said to me, Steph, I'd love to see them all. So this year we paid it a little bit more attention, and I'm so pleased that we did, because I've learned a lot about this, and if you are a classic biker or you've got a big love of classic bikes, come along and you will not be disappointed. There are hundreds spread around across the site, and I know this sounds like such an old cliche, but you will really be spoilt for choice on what they've got out on display. Love it.
Just one cornetto, give it to me. Delicious ice cream, a crunchy dream. Just one cornetto from Earls ice cream.
Now I know one of the questions is going to be, Steph, what is that outfit you're wearing? So if you watch my channel regularly, you'll know that I always wear vintage, which is one of the things that I really like about Goodwood Revival. It gives me a chance to dust down some of my, well, more vibrant and unusual pieces. So this particular hat is from the Bewley Auto Jumble that I went to a couple of weeks ago, and this suit is from the iDriver Classic Archive. Now I do get a lot of people take the mickey out of me because I have so many ridiculous 60s outfits, and this is one of them. Now if you're wondering, what is this dressing up all about? How do you do it and all the rest of it? Well, I actually caught up with one of the best dressed judges and asked them what is best dressed, what's going on, and how should people dress for Goodwood if they so wish to dress up, because it's not compulsory, but so many people do it. So over to them.
Hi there, Lucas Gummersall. I help with judging the best dressed at Goodwood and have done on this Saturday. We've done it for the last couple of years now. This is my girlfriend Katie.
Hi.
And she's also very heavily involved with it and has done it for 3 years as well. In terms of what we're looking for best dressed, we're looking for a little bit of period correctness, good styling, and also it's not necessarily about being vintage, it's about doing things. For example, if you've made your own dress, you've pulled something out of your grandmother's closet, for example, something of interest with the story behind it. So what would you say, Kate?
Definitely attention to detail, so we definitely look at things like shoes, accessories, like bags, earrings, that sort of thing. But like Lucas said, even if it's not vintage, like we had a lady that made a 1940s suit herself using a pattern. So you can be innovative as well, I think. So, yeah.
Exactly. So, and this today, the outright winner was the girl with the maternity outfit on. It was just so appropriate for the day. She looked perfectly period correct, perfectly styled, and she's expecting. So it's a perfect opportunity to wear it.
And if you're looking for inspiration around you, you will not be disappointed, because even if you don't dress up in your first year, you can get plenty of ideas, styling wise, from other people that are visiting Revival. Even the gentlemen are dressed up, which makes for such a great atmosphere. So as I say, it's not compulsory, but it does add a little bit of magic to the weekend. Well, I can't have done too bad a job of dressing myself on Friday, because on the Friday I won Best Dressed Woman at Goodwood, which I haven't stopped talking about because it's such a big deal when you've been on the journey that I have over the last couple of years. So to be an average woman from Huddersfield winning it felt very special indeed. Now there's one lady I need to say thank you to. A part of all of this is Emily at the Betty's Salon, because she did a cracking job at my hair and I think she helped cinch that win. Yes. When I did this video last year, I talked about the Paddocks and I talked about the dress code for the Paddocks. Well, it was slightly different this year because I don't know if you've seen the news or you were there yourself, but the temperatures were hitting over 30 degrees, which meant that the usual jacket, shirt, tie wasn't really the most sensible thing, although you'll probably notice in the background that a lot of men were still out wearing them because, well, old habits die hard at Goodwood Revival. And this year they relaxed it slightly. They said as long as you were in smart period dress, you could come in. So that's why you've probably spotted Joe in the background wearing a smart 1960s polo shirt. In terms of how that fits in every year, you can get away with smart dress, so it doesn't necessarily have to be period, or you can also wear overalls. Now you've probably noticed some of the cars in the background. Well, this is the great thing about the Paddocks, and I probably should say as well that entry to the part that we're in now isn't part of standard admission. You do have to pay for a paddock pass. If you're already making the initial investment of coming to Goodwood, pay a little bit extra and get that paddock pass, especially if you're massively into classic vehicles like myself. I love coming down into the Paddocks, seeing the cars, because you don't just see them going around the track. It adds an extra dimension onto the whole experience, because you can come in, you can talk to the mechanics, and they're all incredibly friendly, even though they're incredibly time poor, and they'll chat to you about the work that they've been doing, what they've had to do to prep the vehicle, any setbacks they've had. So you can come in with a paddock pass on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday and talk to the same set of people and find out how they're getting on off the track, the stuff that they're having to do. If you've seen a car fail to proceed, you can come down into the Paddocks, find out why it's all gone wrong. So it's a really useful thing to look into. For us, our favourite race is the St Mary's Trophy. So we always come down and we look at the cars for that. It's always something we make a beeline for. And the cars in the St Mary's race this year were all 1950s. But there was one that stood out to me in particular. Now this is why you come to Goodwood, because you see cars that you're not going to see anywhere else. This is a Lancer Series 2 from Australia. What is this car doing in England and what's going on with the racing? Tell us everything.
Right, so we brought this in 5 years ago from Australia, from Brisbane. It was originally cream and brown, so a pretty horrible colour. And since then we've completely stripped it, rebuilt it into the colours it is now. The reason for the colour scheme is that we're trying to replicate a car that ran at the Armstrong 500, the inaugural Armstrong 500 at Phillip Island, and BMC entered 4 cars, 2 Austin Lancers and 2 Morris Majors. And this is a replica of one of the Austin Lancers driven by Brian Foley in period in 1960. So the car is basically, it's a Riley 1.5 underneath, the same as the one next door. Yep. Except this is the BMC Australia's take as a Series 2, longer wheelbase by about 9 inches. Original engine was a 1500, 1488, and now this runs an 1840 or an 1860 full race MGB engine.
And what's that out of then?
This one's out of our MGB race car because the original one went sick.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And what are you doing suspension-wise? What have you got on it?
So you have to normally keep everything in the family. So we've got the lever arms at the front, but you're allowed to do adjustments as it was in period to the family. So the later Morris Major Elite had telescopics at the back, which you're allowed to put. So we've got telescopics on the back as well.
Fantastic. And how's the weekend been for you so far?
Oh, it's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's exceeded our expectations massively, yeah.
And how's the car performed?
Well, we got P9 yesterday, nearly P6, P7. So we lost a couple of places on the very last lap, but it's a second difference between 6th and 9th. I think we'll make that up if it goes well tomorrow.
Fantastic. Well, we've got our fingers crossed for you.
Yeah, should be good.
Good luck. See you later.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
If you're into American cars, make sure you get yourself down to the Earls Raceway, part of the Goodwood Revival, because they always have an incredible array of American vehicles here. Stuff that you just wouldn't see normally at car shows, and it's a really great little breakaway area of the show. So I'm showing you some of the bits and pieces, but this year there's something slightly different, because not only have you got all the fabulous dancing and the band that you may be able to hear in the background, but there is also a tiki bar this year, which is incredible. And I think actually we're going to head there now, because you don't win best dressed and not celebrate. Now, whilst military stuff isn't really my thing, I do really enjoy seeing it at Goodwood, and I feel like sometimes it's the enthusiasm of other people that rubs off. So Richard, this has been one of your highlights, hasn't it?
Yeah, I really enjoy. There's so much variety in terms of the military stuff. If you go to a sort of county show or something, you might see a truck or a bike, but you've got piles of Second World War bikes, piles of military trucks, piles of anti-aircraft guns, all sorts here, Sherman tanks, and then on top of that, really the cream of the crop, the genuine Spitfires and Hurricanes as well, some of which, well, they're all the real deal, but some of them, have served in the Battle of Britain, they are the real thing. They are the most special thing to see, really, out of everything here, to see those actual planes, those real icons of that period, and they are the real thing. It's quite a thing, really, to see them, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things for me is, and this can be quite hard for you to get your head around when you're at home, is this section is quite big, isn't it? I mean, we've been wandering around it and we're still not at the end. And we've been on it for what, half an hour, 45 minutes? And we've
plenty of acreage.
Yeah,
covered.
and this is the thing. If you do come to Goodwood, quite often you do find that this military section tends to be upwards, and you can miss it if you end up just enjoying the main thoroughfare. So if you are coming to Goodwood Revival, make sure you come and see it, because it is excellent, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really good. You've got so much stuff that is really actually from that time period.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the thing. That's the difference.
Absolutely. And one of the big things for me is the level of enthusiasm, because there are lots of people here that are in original uniforms that have an intrinsic knowledge of the era and the vehicles that they're sitting beside, and that for me adds real value to this section, because I couldn't tell you one truck from another, but some of these people here today, I've learnt so much. It's been great.
100%.
And from you as well, because this is definitely your sort of thing.
Yeah.
If it's one of those things a bit like Hitler's bunker, you are all over this.
Oh yeah, that's it. If it's like a sort of Second World War documentary, it was probably made about 20 years ago on YouTube.
Originally
I've probably
on VHS.
seen it. Yeah, with a VHS sort of blur where they've sort of recorded over it. I've probably seen it. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm really hungry, so come on, let's go get some food. Another element of Revival that I would tell you not to miss, and doesn't take up much of your time at all, is looking at the police vehicle display. They always have a smashing range of vehicles all lined up. There's some incredibly rare stuff, and people are in period costume as well. So it feels like a little pause between all the other displays, and it's just so lovely to see them all together. For me, it's one of the highlights, even though it's quite a small little layout. Now here's one of my absolute favourite bits, the Goodwood Revival performers. They scatter themselves amongst the crowds and they move around, so whether you're looking for the Dagenham girls, an undercover spy who's about to unmask himself, or perhaps a spiv for some new tights, you can rest assured that wherever you are, you might bump into someone who you'll be like, are they a performer or are they a visitor? And for me, that's one of the greatest things that I enjoyed on my first visit, and I still enjoyed this time. In fact, I spent some time actively looking for all of them.
With anyone else but me. Not until you see me, see her. Not until you see me marching home, 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 sweet home. Just wait till I come marching home. So don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me.
Now, as many of you know that have watched my videos, I'm very big on that mend and make do ethos, especially when you drive a car where so many parts are obsolete. So one of the things that I've really loved that Goodwood have brought in for the last few years of Revival is Revive and Thrive. And this year they've got this massive area behind me, and it's really good because you've got the Heritage Skills Academy, you've got the Restoration and Preservation, you've got the Rag and Bone Man, and there's even Dominic Chenier from the repair shop. So there's lots of people here, and I think this for me is one of my favourite little areas because it's encouraging people to not keep chucking stuff away and replacing it, but to actually get some skills, and they're teaching people skills as well at the back. And I think that is such a great bit of advice, and hopefully whilst we're here this weekend a few more people will be inspired by it. So what I thought I would do is head over to Heritage Skills Academy. I've talked about them before, and I thought I'd catch up with Kyra and ask what they're doing this weekend and how it's going for them.
My name's Kyra. I work for Heritage Skills Academy, and we run the apprenticeship programme for mechanical and coach building apprentices working in the heritage industry. So this weekend we've got this fantastic stall in the workshop area. We're working closely with Dominic Chenier from the repair shop. We've got some mechanical apprentices working over the weekend on a series of tasks. They're stripping down a Rover V8 engine and doing some work to a cylinder head. And we have some coach building apprentices that have come down from Brooklands that are bending, folding, shaping, and they're working with the Rag and Bone Man, who's one of the other businesses here, and they're working on a Morgan wing to create a chaise lounge, which has been supplied by the Morgan Motor Company.
If you're looking to refine your skills more in needlework than metalwork, then don't despair, because Revive and Thrive has you covered. They were hosting workshops throughout the entire weekend, showing you how to learn new skills or to perfect skills that you perhaps already had. But you had to be pretty quick because look, they all started booking out well in advance of them happening. You've had a fabulous day watching the motor racing, you've seen all the cars, and now it's time to head to Over the Road. And whilst this is open all day, we tend to spend the main part of the day at the track, and then we come over and we enjoy Over the Road. Hence why most of my footage is shot in the evening and at night. Now these are the old fairground rides, none of them are reproduction, they're all originals. Some of them were over 100 years old, which makes it quite a feat indeed to have them here and working for people to experience. So they had all sorts, they had helter-skelters, they had the big wheel, which is where I shot that initial footage, and they even had all the old penny machines. Now these aren't reproduction, these are real machines from the era. So they have machines from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and some of the 60s machines too, all in here, all working, that you could use, experience and enjoy. And of course our favourite, the Victorian steamboats, which are always a little bit hectic. But say you don't fancy rides, well what do you do then? Well, you've also got the drive-in movie theatre. You're not going to need to drive in, they've got the vehicles parked up for you. If you want to sit in one of these, you do need to book it at the start of the day. We missed out on this, but hey, do you know what we didn't miss out on? The free popcorn or the deck chairs, because if you didn't get a seat in there, you could sit on one of the deck chairs outside. You're going to hear a lot of people talk about, oh, you must see this at Goodwood, you must see that at Goodwood. But here's the thing, there's something you should see before you've even scanned your ticket, and that is the classic car parking, sometimes referred to as the tax exempt parking, which is for cars made after 1966, or the pre-66 car park. However, I don't know if you can spot it, but we have snuck the Vauxhall in with us today because being a 66, we thought it's on the cusp and we'll risk it. But it's all very well laid out, and as you can probably see, there are hundreds of different cars around us. So what I'm going to try and do is pick out some of the favourites or the most interesting cars and give you a bit of a taste for what's in the pre-66 car park. I don't know if we're going to have time because it stretches so far back to go all the way back into the tax exempt parking. But here's the thing, if you come to Goodwood, try and allocate at least a day, I always say this, to looking around this, because you'll see cars from all over Europe that people have driven in, really unusual stuff and stuff that you don't see anywhere else. This is definitely one of my favourite bits. I thought what I would do is, as I chat to you and show you some of my top picks from the field, I'd talk to you about this parking situation, because every single year I get comments saying, how do we get into the car park? Is it ticketed? What do you do? Well, first of all is, if you want to come in and go for a walk round and look at these cars, you don't need a specific entry pass. You could just see it all with your normal wristband, because essentially it is a car park. However, to park in here, you do need to get a pass. If you go on the Goodwood website, it's all on there. And if you're wondering how quickly you need to get this booked, I would say you need, in terms of timings, you can leave it a little bit later than booking your ticket, because we didn't know if the Vauxhall would be ready to take. So I think we booked the tickets 3 or 4 weeks in advance to get into the pre-66 car park. So I would say, to avoid disappointment, book it as early as you can. But if you do find yourself a couple of weeks before finding that you've managed to get that insurmountable problem sorted on your car and you'd like to take it, well, get on the website and try and get yourself some tickets. That Faisal Vega, by the way, they drove that. And if you want to know a little bit more about it, they're selling it on H&H. Because I was talking to Lewis, because it's Lewis that's selling it, and he was telling me how it's probably the only one on the road. So that's the great thing about this car park, is you see stuff that you just don't see anywhere else, and stuff that people have driven in from, well, thousands of miles away in different countries. And I love that, and it's so different to any other car show. And in my opinion, really, this needs a good afternoon. And as you can probably see here, the blazing sunshine gave way to, well, driving rain. So we were quite quick through this car park, quicker than I would have liked to have been. So I didn't get to see absolutely everything that I would have liked to have seen. And because the weather had started to get quite bad, people had started to clear out. So my big learning for next year is probably I need to hit this on Saturday morning whilst people are still coming in. And if you're coming to watch it, I'd probably give you the same advice too. So yes, lots to see. Make sure you bring a camera and some comfortable shoes, because when we came back to the car park to film this, I had to change mine because my feet were absolutely murdered from all the walking. It was ridiculous. But look, so worth it, right? A lot of people think that Goodwood Revival is only race cars and bits of fashion, but here's the thing, quite often they have displays that you really need to go looking for, and this for me is one of the most brilliant bits of Goodwood Revival 2023. They've brought together, because can you believe it, it's a year since we lost Queen Elizabeth II, and what they've done is they've brought some of her vehicles together throughout the Goodwood arena, and we've got one just here and we've got one behind. So let me show you them in a little more detail. Now this might sound a little bit silly, but I've had to record this a couple of times because talking about these cars makes me incredibly choked up, because number one, it is a huge part of history. These cars belong to the royal family, and realistically, this isn't a video for us to get into a debate about whether you like the royal family or not, or whether you like what they've done or not. Personally, I think they're a massive part of British history, and history for people all over the world. Everybody knows who the royal family are, but more importantly, everybody knew who Queen Elizabeth II was. She was probably the most famous person in the world, and to have her cars here, her family's cars here, on display at Goodwood, not roped off, not behind a barrier, you were able to get within inches of them. This for me was worth driving all the hours to see. It was truly a wonderful piece of history, and every time I talk about this, I get choked up because these cars were just absolutely exceptional. Now, at first, when I first recorded this, I thought there were only 2, and I was perfectly happy to see only 2 of these vehicles, and I felt enormously privileged to be up close and personal. Of course, the vehicles had minders, so you weren't allowed to sit in them or touch them. I mean, why on earth anyone would think they had the right to do that, I don't know. But you got full visibility, you could see everything, and they had all the original photographs as well sitting behind them, so you could see them in use with the family. And I love this, and I've put a bit of music over the top because this was a quiet, respectful area. Now, the greatest upshot of this was when I was talking to the gentlemen that were looking after the stand. They said if you go over the road, there are even more of these cars, and I'm going to share with you one of the most interesting facts that I have about these Royal Family Land Rovers. I don't know if you can see this maroon sitting on this car, the maroon colour, but it has a name, and it's called Maroon A, or Royal Maroon, or sometimes Maroon Royal. And the reason for that is there used to be a colour on the BMC palette called Maroon, which became Maroon A, or Maroon Royal, or Royal Maroon, because the royal family liked it so much they asked to use it on their vehicles, and with that BMC stopped using it on customer vehicles. It was partially that and partially because the technologies at the time meant that the colour faded quite a bit. So the royal family bagged that and they created a new maroon colour called Maroon B. So I actually know this history because on early Morris Minors it's Maroon A, and on later Morris Minors it's Maroon B, so they do swap it over. You can see the differences when you park them up and how the colours fade out as well. So for those of you that are also paint geeks, a little bit of interest. Now, I quite like the fact that they had all of the older stuff, but some of the newer stuff as well. So they had the Range Rovers, and I don't know, for me, again, it's in Maroon B, I just loved this display and thought it was just a fantastic addition to Goodwood. I cannot believe we have to go home from Goodwood Revival. We have had such a fantastic time over the last 3 days, and ending it here next to one of the Royal Family's Land Rovers. I mean, Goodwood Revival is so much more than just watching cars race around a track. It's everything, it's the lifestyle, it's taking a true step back in time, and there's so much thought and care and passion that's put into this entire event that for me, this is the one event of the year that I will not miss no matter what. So please don't book any weddings, christenings or anything like that on this weekend because I won't be there. It's fantastic. The one thing I will say is if you've watched this video and thought, I definitely need to get myself to Goodwood Revival next year, be quick in booking your tickets because everything's sold out so early this year. To say that this is in September, we were struggling for Saturday tickets for some of my friends in March, April. So be warned, beware, and get those tickets booked early. And hopefully I'll see you next year. And if I don't see you next year, I'll see you next Sunday. So until then, take care and drive safely.